Hello FOADies, Jackson here. Today I'm going to be taking a look at all the different types of handlebars that you can ride on a fixed gear, some of my favorites, some of my least favorites, and a couple of tips if you're looking to level up your skills or learn some tricks. Let's get into it. Stick around to the end of the video. I'm going to share a little bit about these very strange handlebars and share with you which handlebar is my overall favorite. They're not these. So handlebars, there's a ton of different kinds, and to me, choosing the right type of handlebar is the second most important choice for your bike outside of choosing a frame. It's one of the components that you're directly touching, interacting with on your bike. Handlebars also have a huge impact on the ride feel, ergonomics, fit. It's also the face of the bike, in my opinion, just aesthetically. Fixed gear has always been about customization, dialing in the fit, dialing in the aesthetics, and a lot has changed from when fixed gears first became popular until today. Also, before we get into the video, go check out FOADgang.com. Got some gear, which I'm sporting right now. So a couple things to note before we get into the list. First being, I rode a lot of these handlebars without grips or handlebar tape. Don't do that. I was just trying to run through this test, film it quickly. Grips or handlebar tape are an absolute necessity, and bar ends are huge for not getting injured on your bike. If you happen to fall on top of your handlebars, you can get cored. Not pretty. I'm going to be quantifying my ratings. Obviously, this is biased and based upon my personal opinion, but the criteria that I'm going to be looking at are tricks, comfort, control, aesthetics, and speed. First up on the list is a fixed gear classic, the BULLHORN. So when fixed gears first became popular, BULLHORNs were a very popular handlebar style. People would just take their drop bars, chop them in half, flip them upside down, and call it a day. That was the BULLHORN. These ones in particular are actually pursuit bars, and they were made specifically to run this way. They used to have like a little bit of up right here, but for some reason, my younger self decided it was a good idea to chop these. I wish I still had that little extra part of the grip. So with BULLHORNs, you have a couple of different riding positions to choose from. Not as many as drop bars, but you do have the flats, or you can ride on the actual BULLHORNs, and that's going to emulate basically the feeling of riding on the hoods with a traditional drop bar. So for me, riding on the actual BULLHORNs is pretty comfortable, especially if they have a little bit of upward swoop. That's going to just keep your hand in a nice locked in position, whereas with like a drop bar, if you're riding just on the bends, you can feel like your hand is going to slip off the front, whereas these feel a little bit more secure. I like that hand position for climbing. You can really like crank on the bike and pedal up, which if you're on a fixed gear, you're stuck with one gear and you might have to crank up some hills. The other thing that's nice with the BULLHORNs are that they make or can make skidding just a little bit easier. You're obviously going to be further forward on the bike because your hands are just further out. And so there's going to be a little bit less weight on that back wheel, making skidding just a little bit easier. I remember when I first learned how to ride a fixed gear, I needed all the help that I could get, and it actually did make a difference. The one thing I will say about riding with BULLHORNs is they're going to stretch you out a little bit more. So if you're on a bike that maybe is a little bit bigger, or you don't like to be as stretched out on the bike, BULLHORNs might not be for you. If you're riding on the flats, your hands are going to be pretty narrow, which to me can feel kind of sketchy, especially like these bars in particular. If I'm not riding on the down part, if I'm actually riding on the real flats, my hands are really, really narrow, which just isn't always the most comfortable. Hot take, BULLHORNs are underrated now. So the BULLHORNs, not great for tricks. I'm going to give this 5 out of 10. I will say it's a little bit less in the way than a drop bar is. You're not gonna like hit your knee on it as much. If you're only interested in doing keo spins or wheelies, you might be fine with the BULLHORNs. Comfort, I'm gonna rate BULLHORNs 8 out of 10. Different hand positions you can choose from, as long as you're not too stretched out on the bike. Control, I'm gonna give BULLHORNs 7 out of 10. They don't come in a lot of wide options, which to me always equates to more bike control, especially if you're riding on the flats. Aesthetics, I'm gonna give BULLHORNs 7 out of 10. I think that they can look nice on the build. I know that they were very fixie and kind of corny back in the day, but I think enough time has passed that Bullhorns are ready for a resurgence. I actually decided to pick up another pair of Bullhorns after making this video. I got another pair of Nito Pursuit bars. Obviously these ones don't have the tips cut off. I wanted a pair in black to go on my AC3. You can crank on them up hills. You can get relatively low, although not as low as drops. So for speed, I'm gonna give Bullhorns 8 out of 10. One style of handlebar to mention, but isn't really even a style in and of itself, is the integrated handlebar stem combination. This is my AC3 mash. I'm running some specialized drop bars on here. Integrated combo is very sleek. If you've been following this channel, you know I'm a fan of it. I had the Ritchie Bull Moose bars for a very long time. The integrated setup is really clean. There are a couple of really big drawbacks, which I think is the reason that they're not more popular. For one, you can't change the stem length. That's a really big deal. In addition to handlebar style, stem makes a big difference in how your bike is going to feel. A really long stem is going to put you in a more stretched out position. It's going to make handling feel a little bit slower, whereas a shorter stem is going to feel a lot more twitchy, and it's going to make the bike feel a little bit more compact. With an integrated setup, you can't change that at all. You're kind of stuck with it. The other big con is most of these integrated setups are carbon, and they're very, very expensive, like ridiculously expensive. The cons of the integrated setup kind of just totally outweigh the benefits, but there's nothing that beats the look, so if it's something you're interested in, check it out. Probably one of the most classic handlebars that you can rock on your bike, it's the drop bar. Drop bars have changed a lot in the last 10, 15 years. Manufacturers are experimenting a lot with width, angles, shapes of bars. The first benefit of running drop bars is that you get a number of different hand positions. Riding in the drops like I am here, you can ride on the flats up here, and you can ride on the hoods or where the hoods would be right here. When I first rode drops on a fixed gear, I got track drops, which are only really meant to be ridden in the drops. They're really, really deep, which means you can get aero, but they're also going to be a little bit less comfortable. They also have long swoopy angles, which means if you want to ride on the flats, you have to hold all the way right here, or you kind of hold on the corners in this like really terrible wrist angle uncomfortableness. Not for me. Drop bars nowadays are a lot more comfortable. These ones, for example, have even a little bit of rise just to give you a little bit more of a comfortable position. On my gravel bike, I rock some really wide drop bars, which I like a lot. In general, gravel bars are going to be a little bit more comfort oriented. They might come in wider widths. The actual drops could be flared a little bit more, and the actual drop is going to be a little bit more shallow. Whereas road handlebars are going to be aggressive and aerodynamic. If you're someone who gets fidgety on your bike and you want to be able to move around a little bit, or maybe you come from a road cycling background, drop bars could be a good option. One of the biggest cons of riding with drops on a fixed gear is if you are not running brakes, you do not have the traditional hoods like you would. And to me, that is the most comfortable position. Ends up just feeling kind of awkward and uncomfortable in my opinion. There are a couple of companies that made some dummy levers that you could put, but they're not currently available. I've been thinking about trying to manufacture something for dummy drop bar hoods. And so if you're interested in that, let me know in the comments. Also go over to FOADgang.com and subscribe to the email list. It's kind of a long shot. I've been thinking about it for over a year now, but if there's enough interest in it, it might be something worth doing. Drop bars and tricks, they don't really mix. You can do tricks with drop bars. You're looking to do keo spins or wheelies or just general on the ground tricks. You can get away with doing drop bars. 4 out of 10 for trick ability. A million different options for drop bars, and I think you can really dial in the fit. I like that you can change your hand position, so 9 out of 10 for comfort. I wouldn't really want to like try to hop up a curb with drop bars. In general, they're a little bit less intuitive to ride than say a riser bar. I also think not having quite as much width on the flats, 7 out of 10. There are some ugly drop bars. I've clearly ridden some in this video. But in general, I will say nothing looks more traditional, more classic, more fast, more speedy, more sexy than a drop bar. You just can't beat it. 10 out of 10. Besides maybe like a goofy tri-bar, there isn't going to be a bar that is faster, more aerodynamic. 10 out of 10 for speed. Next up on the list might not be the first handlebar that you think of when you think fixed gears. It's the BMX-style handlebar. This one in particular is from Ruff Bike Co, one of my longtime sponsors. High-rise bars have gotten popular on 90s retro mountain bikes. Wheelie boys obviously rocking the cruiser style bars on the big BMX. Track lacrosse is another great application. And then of course, fixed gear freestyle, which is what these bars are for. I gotta give a big shout out to Ruff Bike Co. These are the Ruff Bike Co GC bars. They are the best bars for fixed gear freestyle in the game. Perfect amount of rise. They had come in a couple different options. They're incredibly strong. They look really sick. They're a really cool 4-piece design. I have been running these bars and love these bars for many, many years now. Ruff Bike Co is also coming out with a new frame set very, very soon. So make sure you go give them a follow. There is a FOAD/Ruff Bike Co collab graphic, which I'm really excited about. Ruff Bike Co makes great stuff. I stand behind them. They've been one of the best sponsors of me and this channel for a very, very long time. For fixed gear freestyle, the frame is obviously a lot smaller. And so having a handlebar that's upright is gonna just give you a lot more power to pop the bike up. I don't think I would ever put these on a traditional track bike fixed gear just because they're really, really tall and it would just make the whole bike feel a little bit wonky. I know Wes is running some Surly Sunrise handlebars, which are a little bit shorter than this, on his squid track lacrosse build, just to give him that nice upright position. These would also be great for an ATB build. I've got one that is in the works right now, and I think I'm gonna throw these bars on there because those bikes are super far forward. If you don't follow The Last Orchid or Wolfdrawn on Instagram, you should, because they are doing the sickest stuff on their retro mountain bikes. And they all run Ruff Bike Co bars. One thing to mention about BMX style bars is they use a different clamp diameter. Nowadays, 31.8 is a traditional clamp diameter, but BMX handlebars are 22.2. So you'll either need to use a shim or run a BMX stem. Here are some really, really low rise handlebars that I've been holding on to for over a decade. I'm gonna put these on my Cortec, I think. So many bar spins. For tricks, BMX style bars obviously get a 10 out of 10. That's what they're made to do. They're nice and upright, which is very comfortable riding position. You can even go too far with this and have some giant bars all the way up here and make you feel like you're on a beach cruiser. I'm gonna give these bars 8 out of 10. I'm gonna give these bars 10 out of 10. Not much to say. You're gonna be able to really control the bike. I think these style bars look great on certain builds, but can look really wonky if not done right. I'm gonna give it an 8. This is where the BMX style bar does not shine. I'm gonna give it a 3 out of 10. Next up on the list, I don't actually have an example to show you and is really hard to give you any sort of information for because they're all so different. So I'm just gonna call this category the weirdo handlebar category, mustache bars, or the weird surly handlebars. If you're into weird handlebars, by all means, go out and get some. I don't really like handlebars with a lot of back sweep just in general. It feels really awkward to me and makes me feel like I'm not really able to control the bike very well. Go out, experiment with it. If anybody has a weirdo bar that they like or recommend, drop it in the comments. So I'm gonna do my best job to rate the weirdo bars, although there are so many different kinds. This isn't entirely accurate and it's based off of my brief experience riding some very cruisery bars on my squid. Take all of this with a grain of salt. I'm gonna give them 5 out of 10. They could be good, I don't know. These bars are typically designed towards being comfortable, ergonomic. I'm gonna give these bars 9 out of 10. A lot of variability there, so not really sure how to rate it. 6 out of 10 for bike control. Aesthetic, I think these bars could look really cool or really dorky. So I'm gonna put it flat in the middle, 5 out of 10. These bars are typically not developed for speed, so I'm gonna give them a 5 out of 10. One of the tried and true classics of handlebars is the riser/flat handlebar. I've even got a very extreme example of a riser bar that I would not recommend. So the riser bar comes in a variety of widths, back sweeps. I traditionally go with a mountain bike style bar. It's going to be a more traditional back sweep, which is somewhere between 10 to 15 degrees, and rise somewhere between 0 and 50. 0 is what you'd call a flat bar. These bars in particular are carbon. There are a lot of great bars in aluminum as well. I traditionally go for like a DH mountain bike handlebar because it's going to give me a good strength to weight ratio. It's not going to be something that if I'm doing tricks on, I'm going to worry about. It just feels like I can really control the bike, put a lot of power into it. If I'm doing tricks, I can maneuver the bike more easily. And if I'm doing skids, I can really feel like I can get a nice grip on the bike and not be worried about twitching the handlebars. And I would not recommend this handlebar at all. Technically, it's a flat bar in a ridiculously narrow width. A lot of people were rocking this style bar back when fixed gears became popular. The thought behind it was that you could ride through traffic really easily and fit between cars, and it just made sense at the time, I guess. Looked cool at the time, I guess. I'm gonna make a longer video about these handlebars, testing them out in the real world. And so if you're interested in that, make sure you hit the subscribe button. I think it's gonna be a very interesting experience, to say the least. If you're on a traditional track bike, fixed gear, looking to do tricks, riser bars are gonna be your best option. They're gonna be the only option if you wanted to be able to do bar spins. 10 out of 10. Riser bars are generally pretty comfortable, but there is only one hand position, so I'm gonna give them a 7. You're gonna be able to pop up curves, maneuver really quickly, and it's just gonna feel really natural, intuitive. 10 out of 10. If you put riser bars on, it's not gonna be anything special. I think you can go way too wide. The bars I was riding in this video were really, really wide, and then you can obviously go way too narrow, so I'm gonna give it a 7 out of 10. Riser flat bars are obviously not made for going fast, and so I'm gonna give them a 6. Let's get into the results. Coming in at 5th place is the Weirdo bar with an accumulation of 30 points. Obviously, this is really hard to judge. If you like a Weirdo bar, get it, rock it. Coming in at 4th place with 35 points overall is the Bullhorn. I think there's a lot of great things to like about the Bullhorn, and it deserves a comeback, but it is a little bit more limited when you compare it to the other options. Coming in at 3rd place, and this will show you that my rating system is quite flawed, is the BMX-style handlebar. Clearly there is some bias in this rating scale. I think BMX-style bars are great for the right applications, but they're not for every bike and everybody. And for 1st and 2nd, it's a tie with 40 points for both the riser bar and the drop bar. And I didn't actually mean to have that happen, but it did. And it goes to show you that the two most popular options are the most popular options for a reason. I think it really just depends on which direction do you want to go. Do you want something that's comfortable and will be easier to do tricks? Or do you want something that's made for longer rides or being a little bit faster? Drop bars on a fixed gear, they're just not my first choice. I am, however, trying out the drop bars on my new MASH AC3 build. I wanted to give them a second chance, and still not totally sure if it's for me. Beginning of the video, I mentioned that I would share which handlebar is my favorite, and this is it. You just can't go wrong with a good riser bar. That's all I have for this video. Thank you all for watching. Let me know in the comments what your favorite style of handlebar is, and I'll see you in the next video.